Samsung has now released another foldable phone right after the Galaxy Fold, and this one is called the Galaxy Z Flip. I know, a pretty weird name, but I've actually had the chance to go to the event myself this week and use the Galaxy Z Flip for a while, so here are not 5, not 10, but actually 30 interesting things you probably didn't know about the Galaxy Z Flip. We actually did a very similar video covering 40 things you didn't know about the Galaxy S20s, so feel free to watch that video in case you want to learn more about the Galaxy S20, the S20 Plus, and the S20 Ultra, as this video is focused solely on the Galaxy Z Flip. So, as always, grab some snacks, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Oh, and by the way, in case you missed it, we're actually doing a giveaway of a pair of Samsung Galaxy Buds Plus, the new ones. So all you have to do is just be a subscriber of the channel, follow on Instagram @ZenOfTech, and leave a comment on this video with your Instagram handle, and also say which color of the Galaxy Buds Plus do you want to win. And that's pretty much it. I'll be announcing the winner on Instagram via stories and DMs on March the 12th, so just about a month from now. Okay, so since the Galaxy Z Flip is a folding phone, albeit a vertical folding one rather than the horizontal style that we had before, it will have a crease in the middle. Now, the question that you probably have is this crease noticeable? And I would actually say no, it's not. So I've used it for probably 20 to 30 minutes at the event, and while yes, you can see it from certain angles, I didn't really notice it until I remembered that, oh, I should probably look for it and mention it in this video if it was indeed noticeable. So no, nothing to worry about. Also, unlike the Galaxy Fold, which just like all the other foldable devices, such as the Royal FlexPi, Huawei Mate X, and the Moto Razr uses a plastic screen, the Galaxy Z Flip is actually the world's first foldable phone to actually use a glass display, which is pretty amazing. So it's using Samsung's brand new UTG technology, or ultra thin glass technology. I'm extremely curious to learn how on earth they managed to make this fold the glass. Long story short, Corning did it, not Samsung. So Samsung simply using Corning's flexible Gorilla Glass, but regardless, this results in a much more durable screen compared to the plastic screen that you could literally destroy by simply using your fingernails. Yeah, pretty awesome. Also, something pretty awesome that Samsung didn't really talk about that much is the aspect ratio of the display. On TVs and computer monitors, we usually have a 16:9 aspect ratio. Now, the Galaxy S10s from last year, they had a 19:9 aspect ratio, so a much taller and a more cinematic display, so to say. The S20s from this year, they have a 20:9 aspect ratio, so even taller than the 19:9 on the S10s. And then the Z Flip actually has a 22:9 aspect ratio. Well, it's actually 21.9/9 to be more precise, but this is insane. This is actually the tallest display on any smartphone to this day. Yes, it's even taller than the Sony Xperia 1, which had a 21:9 aspect ratio and was known to have this extremely cinematic display. Now, unfortunately, the display on the Z Flip does not have the high 120Hz refresh rate display that the S20s get, or even the 90Hz refresh rate. Instead, we have 60Hz, just like we had on the S10s last year, and similar to what we already have on most other smartphones today. Next up, even though the Z Flip has a pretty large 6.7-inch display, same size as the S20 Plus, the Z Flip is actually taller than the S20 Plus by quite a bit because of that 22:9 aspect ratio. Also, the resolution itself is actually lower than on the regular S20s. So we have a 2636 by 1080 resolution display on the Z Flip versus 3200 by 1440 on the S20s. So this translates to 425 ppi versus over 500, which is what we get on all the S20s. And if you do care about bezels, the Z Flip has thicker bezels than the S20. It's essentially this uniform border that surrounds the display, sort of like the border of the iPhone 11 Pros, just with no notch, of course. Oh, and here's something interesting. Unlike all the S20s, which do have a microSD card slot, the Z Flip does not. So you'll be forever stuck with the base storage. And speaking of the storage, we do get 256 gigabytes as the baseline on the Z Flip, which is pretty good. It's almost, double. I mean, it is double compared to what we have on the S20s, which only come with 128 gigabytes. But like I said before, this storage is fixed. You cannot expand it, whereas on the S20s, you can. Also, the Z Flip now features the brand new UFS 3.0 storage standard, just like the S20s, which gives you double the read and write speeds compared to the S10. So you have over 1 gigabyte per second read speeds, which is pretty insane on a smartphone. Now, one of the most important things about a foldable phone is, the hinge, which is the thing that makes it fold. Now, luckily, Samsung has learned a lot from their Galaxy Fold, and the Z Flip now has their latest hinge design. So it features synthetic fibers on the inside to protect it from any dust or dirt getting into the hinge. but my favorite part of it is that you can actually stop it at different angles. And if you do stop it at a 90-degree angle, the Z Flip will actually use the split screen mode, where certain apps will use the two sections of the display as two separate displays. Just to give you guys a better idea, you can use this in the camera app and prop it up on a table and take a selfie like that, which is pretty cool and pretty useful. And you can also use it in the gallery app and have a preview window of all of your photos on the bottom section of the display, and then the main photo on the top. So yeah, I know, it's a gimmick. It's definitely a gimmick, but at least they are making some good use of even when the phone is half folded. So really good job, Samsung, thank you. Now, on the back of the Z Flip, we do have a small secondary display. And by small display, I mean a very small display, actually. So this is a 1.1-inch AMOLED display with a resolution of 300 by 112. So it's mostly there to show you the time and the date, and yeah, that's pretty much it. However, it does have this really cool and unique use case scenario where if you close the flip down and you press the power button, you double press it, you can actually use the display as a viewfinder and take a selfie with the main camera module, which is pretty cool. Now, like I said, the display is really, really small and it's quite hard to position yourself and even see yourself, but hey, at least it's something. Now, in case you're wondering how the Flip compares to the Motorola Razr, which is, really the only other vertically folding phone on the market right now, well, the Z Flip is better in almost every single way. Like really, the only way in which the Moto Razr is better is the fact that the display, the outer display, is a bit bigger, but that's it. The Z Flip has much better specs, much better cameras. It has a glass display versus the plastic display on the Razr. The display is bigger, 6.7-inch versus 6.2-inch. It's also a high resolution display as well. You get 4K 60 video recording on the back versus 4K 30 on the Moto Razr. 4K 30 on the front versus 1080p 30 on the front with a Razr. You get Android 10 versus Android 9 on the Razr, really, Android 9. And then the Razr has a gigantic chin as well. So yeah, the Z Flip is the foldable phone to get in case you're looking for a foldable phone that folds vertically. Next up, compared to the S20s, there are a few areas in which the Z Flip is quite a bit of a downgrade, aside from just the display. So for example, while the S20s have an in-display fingerprint reader, the Z Flip does not, and instead it actually uses a fingerprint reader that's built into the power button. Also, unlike the S20s, which can all record 8K video, the Z Flip maxes out at 4K 60. And speaking of the cameras, the Z Flip actually uses the exact same main camera as the S10 did from last year. So this means a 12 megapixel main module with 1.4 micron sized pixels. Unfortunately, we no longer get that f1.5 to f2.4 variable aperture lens that the S9 introduced, and we had the same thing on the S10 and the Note 9 and the Note 10 as well. So instead, we now get a fixed f1.8 aperture lens. So yeah, low performance on the Z Flip is actually worse than on the S10 from last year. The S20s all get brand new sensors with larger pixels, but a Z Flip does not. But luckily, we do get at least the very same 12 megapixel ultra wide angle module that we get on all the other S20s. However, since we only get two camera modules on the back, both of which are 12 megapixels in resolution, we cannot really get the same level of zoom that we get on the other three S20 models. In fact, we don't really get any optical zoom at all. So even the 2x or 5x zoom that you'll get on the phone, all of those are purely digital zoom. Also, the front-facing camera module is very similar to the one on the S10. So it's a 10 megapixel sensor, only with a smaller f2.4 aperture from the f1.9 aperture that we had on the S10. So it's actually a bit worse than the S10 one. However, the front-facing camera cutout itself is actually smaller than on the S10 and the Note 10. So at least that's a plus. But something that's a minus is water resistance. So in case you're thinking about taking the Z Flip to the pool, don't even think about it because the Z Flip doesn't have any water resistance whatsoever. So avoid using it in the rain as well. And while the CPU is actually a flagship level CPU, unlike the Moto Razr, by the way, which uses a mid-range CPU, yes, the Z Flip still uses the Snapdragon 855 Plus processor from last year. Now, interesting enough, there is no Exynos version of the Z Flip at all. So the 855 Plus Snapdragon, that's the only version that you'll get. And this is also a slightly overclocked 855. So long story short, the CPU performance on the Z Flip is very similar to the CPU performance of the Galaxy S10s from last year. While the S20s, they all get brand new 2020 processors with a Snapdragon 865 for the US and Canadian versions of the S20s and the Exynos 990 for the international versions. Now, another downgrade of the Z Flip over the S20s is in terms of the RAM. So while the S20s, they come with 12 gigabytes of RAM and even 16 gigabytes of RAM on the highest end 512GB model of the S20 Ultra. The Z Flip comes with 8GB of RAM, same as the S10s from last year, and also same as the S20 4G. Fun fact, the 4G S20 comes with 8GB of RAM, the 5G of the S20 and all the other models, they come with 12, and then 16 for the S20 Ultra 5G. It's a bit complicated, I know. Now, back to some positives for a bit. The Galaxy Z Flip does come with a free case in the box, which is pretty useful, considering that cases for foldable phones are definitely not the easiest thing to find. But something that you won't find in the Galaxy Z Flip is Wi-Fi 6 or 802.11ax, because yes, we don't have the latest generation of Wi-Fi standard for whatever reason, which is really weird because the Galaxy S20s have it, and fun fact, the Galaxy S10s from the year before also had it. So it's really strange that we don't get Wi-Fi 6 with a Z Flip, especially considering how expensive this phone is. Now, something else that's also missing out is fast charging. So the Z Flip supports 15-watt charging, which is still pretty good comparing it to the 20-watt charging on the S20s. It's quite a bit, lower. Or we also have 45-watt fast charging on the S20 Ultra and the Note 10 Plus. So yeah, once again, you can see that the Z Flip is lacking behind by quite a bit. And speaking of lacking, I'm a bit concerned when it comes to the battery life of this phone. So it still has a massive 6.7-inch display, but the battery size is only 3,300 mAh, which, fun fact, is actually smaller than the 3,400 mAh that we got with the regular S10 from last year, which had a 6.1-inch display, a much smaller display. So yeah, I'm quite concerned in terms of how long this phone would actually last you. Oh, and I've tried finding any notes about or any mentions about DeX support on the Z Flip, and I couldn't find a single thing that mentions that DeX is supported on the Z Flip. Now, I even tried looking for the same thing on the S20s, and it was quite difficult to find, so DeX support isn't listed anywhere on the spec sheet. You have to go to the main webpage, and it is indeed listed here in the Galaxy Essentials app list, so it is there, but nothing in terms of the Z Flip. Now, since the Z Flip is a very expensive phone, which I'll get to in my next point, it actually does come with a premium support service. It's called the Galaxy Concierge service, and you get 24/7 customer support, 7 days a week, plus you also get a 1 year of free accidental damage support, which is pretty awesome and, cover. Now, this is something that the Galaxy Fold also comes with, so there we go, you get the same Galaxy Concierge service. And now, on top of that, in case, I don't know, your screen breaks or, something happens and you want to replace it, it will cost you £100 or 99 UK for the Z Flip and 115 for the Galaxy Fold, which is surprisingly low. Like, I wasn't expecting Samsung to only charge this low, or this much, considering that Apple charges, by the way, £326 for the iPhone 11 Pro Max's display replacement, which has a more standard, non-foldable / non-flexible display. And finally, the last thing that I want to mention in this video is that you shouldn't really buy the Galaxy Z Flip. And that's because it's very, very expensive, like very expensive. At a price of $1,400 or £1,300 in the UK, this thing costs more than your laptop probably does. And it's still just a smartphone. Like, you wouldn't use this for, actual work. You'll use it for social media, watching YouTube videos and, cat videos, and that's pretty much it. Some of you might use it for professional photography, but in that case, just, get the Ultra, S20 Ultra, or get a different phone because the cameras aren't that amazing on this. I mean, like I said, in many ways, the Galaxy S10 from last year is actually a better phone. You get a zoom module, as well as a better front-facing camera. You also get a better main module, alongside a larger battery. Sure, the Galaxy S10 doesn't fold in half, but at least the price is folded in half. Yes, you can actually get the Galaxy S10 for half the price of the Galaxy Z Flip, or even lower than that, which is pretty nuts. This is the reason why the Galaxy Z Flip is so expensive. It's because it folds in half, and it's still a brand new technology that's very expensive to manufacture, so there you go. If you took all that folding away, in that case you would be left with a Galaxy S10e with a larger 6.7-inch display. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Also, the camera is a bit worse than on the Galaxy S10e, slightly. So sure, if you have lots of cash to burn and you just want a really cool phone and you don't really care about having the best specs and the best camera, then definitely go for it. Otherwise, I would recommend either going for the regular S20 or I would say just going for the Galaxy Fold, because that's essentially a tablet that folds in half, and it's much more useful than a phone that already fit in your pocket that, folds in half. I don't really see the point of that. But let me know in the comments your thoughts on everything that I mentioned in this video, and also feel free to share any Galaxy Z Flip tips or things you probably didn't know, or things that you did know, and things that you think the audience might not know. If you want to support the channel, then definitely consider becoming a member by clicking the join button down below. It only costs 99p a month, so yes, less than £1 or less than a coffee per month, and essentially you're supporting the channel and videos like this one, and you also get some unique badges next to your name and that anyone can see in the comments that actually evolve the longer you've been a member for. So I think that's pretty cool. So check it out, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and notifications if you want to see more in-depth tech videos like this one, hopefully was. Once again, make sure to check out the Samsung Galaxy S20 40 things you didn't know. And yeah, this has been pretty much it. We'll be doing some hands-on coverage with the Galaxy S20 pretty soon. Like I said, I did go to the event, so I did record a bit of footage, but essentially we're just waiting for the actual units of the S20. Hopefully we'll get those pretty soon. Fingers crossed. Samsung, please. But yeah, thank you for watching. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Zen of Tech, signing out. Cheers.